foyer, directly in front of the staircase that I've walked past every day for as long as I can remember. Oval in shape and framed with swirls of gold iron, some days I gaze into it only in passing. But on others I linger for longer, pausing to analyze the reflection of myself in this mirror. On a good hair or outfit day, I'll smile at the girl I see. But when my hair is a mess and I look like I haven't slept in approximately 3 days, I'll frown. Regardless, no matter if it's seconds or minutes I spend physically standing in front of this mirror, the image of my reflection refuses to fade from my memory throughout the day. The truth is, as silly as it sounds, I've spent my life being afraid of mirrors. I remember once being asked to pick up a small handheld mirror, look my reflection in the eye, and tell myself a compliment as part of a leadership activity. Those were the instructions: pick up the mirror, look at the reflection, and talk to myself. It was a task that seemed so easy in theory, but became remarkably difficult when I pictured it in execution. As my classmates took turn after turn, I sat there frozen to my seat in fear, mind rushing, before I could finally muster the courage to just pick up that mirror. Lift, look, no wait, pause. Lift, look, it's really not that hard, Eugenie. Lift, look, and finally, talk. It took me 3 tries, albeit brief ones, for me to finally acknowledge that I liked my determined, and I will admit at times stubborn, personality. When I got home later that evening, I tried practicing the exercise in my own mirror. Why was it so difficult for me to speak to a simple reflection? For me, my fear of mirrors first started as a fear of comparison. Growing up as an only child, I would visit the library every single week with my dad to check out stacks of books, spending hours eagerly whisking through fictional worlds in the Magic Treehouse series, or crying late at night in my bedroom after finally finishing Wonder. I was more than content to sit with a book on my lap at major social gatherings, receiving praise from my parents and other adults for how productive I was being with my time. While other kids were playing Mario Kart or games on their parents' phones, I was reading. And so naturally, my love for language not only stemmed from the beautiful characters and stories I encountered, but also from the praise and validation of the adults around me. From there stemmed my passion for storytelling and for writing, and soon English became, without a doubt, one of my favorite subjects in school. Writing essays, analyzing literary devices, even those seemingly mundane and much complained about activities became sort of a natural extension of my imagination. But like one outgrows a pair of too small leggings, as I left elementary school, it seemed as though I was expected to have outgrown my love for language as well. When the inevitable question of, what do you want to do when you grow up, arose at those very same social gatherings. This time, brows furrowed and skeptical glances were exchanged when I timidly voiced the suggestion of my becoming an English major. Oh, it's just a phase, people would reassure my parents. She'll realize soon enough that she won't be the next J.K. Rowling. I wasn't supposed to overhear those conversations, but when I did, my reflection in the mirror shrank just the littlest bit. 2 of your cousins work for Google as coders, my parents would tell me. Don't you want to be like them? And it seemed as though everyone in my life was asking, what's the point, before I had even started. And soon enough, with enough of those rejection-like responses, my answer transformed into, I'd like to go to med school. I'd like to major in molecular biology. And then the smiles and the praise returned. But the external validation couldn't fix the cracks their words had left in my self-image. Suddenly, the girl in the mirror became less than. Someone who couldn't be successful, someone whose interests were fanciful and unimportant, someone I didn't want to look at for fear that if I looked long enough, I'd realize all she was an imposter. English was an inseparable part of my identity, but that part of myself was something I tried to ignore for a very long time. When people said, anyone can write, but not everyone can do calculus, I believed them. When people said, there is no future for a career in English, I believed them. And as I heard those I loved the most telling me I couldn't do it, I thought to myself, maybe they're right. Maybe I really can't do it. In that moment, my reflection in the mirror shrank just the littlest bit more. In the middle of 9th grade, my aversion to mirrors transformed from a figurative fear into an undeniably concrete avoidance surrounding all mirrors, especially floor-length ones. All because of the number 19, and for all the same reasons as before. 19 degrees. As a doctor pulled up the x-ray of my spine on his computer, he pulled out a protractor, the exact same tool I'd been using in my math class only a few days prior. Holding it up to the screen, he announced that my spine had a 19-degree curvature. Scoliosis. For the first few weeks, the diagnosis lay at the back of my mind. If I hadn't noticed the curve in my spine until only a few weeks prior, what was the big deal? But when friends began to make innocent, unassuming comments about how nice my figure looked only on the left side of my body, I began to avoid the floor-length mirror in the dressing room. With each subsequent doctor's appointment, the growing severity of my scoliosis only became more and more apparent. And with each additional degree that my spine gained, it quite literally increased the degree of separation I felt from all my friends. I began making excuses to avoid pool parties, refused to wear swimsuits in public, and shuddered at the thought of trying on clothes in any fitting room with floor-length mirrors. Which is to say, practically every fitting room in existence became a constant source of unease for me. I fell out of love with myself, embarrassed, but most of all, disgusted by my own body. Constantly comparing myself to girls with seemingly perfect figures and concluding that I could never measure up. I was so used to seeing all these conventional beauty standards that when I realized that I was different, I concluded that I must be wrong, that I was a mistake. The reflection in the mirror shrank until it was little more than a speck, something I could barely perceive any longer. The voice in my head was no longer my own chatter, but rather a barrage of words and phrases accumulated over the years. Things people had said to me about me. I'd spent so long wishing that I could be someone that I just wasn't, wanting to mold my personality to fit other people's definitions of intelligence and of success, wanting to mold my own body to fit other people's definitions of beauty. And The truth is, the moment when you fall out of love with yourself is one of the scariest moments ever. I found myself so lost, struggling to find my foothold in a world where I was scared of being nothing but a lesser copy of someone else, but even more scared of actually being myself, for fear that no one would like me for me. It took me so long to realize that the mirror was never really the problem. Growing up, I looked in mirrors, both figurative and literal, so often to criticize myself that when asked to do the opposite, naturally I struggled. I feel the most vulnerable and exposed when I stand in front of mirrors, and it's a feeling that I've tried for so long to hide from. It took me so long to realize that mirrors are objective reflections. Rather, it is the way I choose to perceive myself that truly affects my self-worth. I have to remind myself that sometimes I look at the world through rose-tinted lenses that aren't as kind when they fall on my own reflection. And so now, when I choose to stare into that mirror once again, I remind myself that I am responsible for defining the person I see there. I want to become not a reflection of the person I think other people want me to be, but a reflection of the most wholly, unabashedly unique individual that I can be. Because learning to love yourself again comes first from learning to love the reflection in the mirror.